So for this video, let's take a look at the Seven of Pentacles, and we'll start out with the RWS card. Now, this card has a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different layers. And I think that if you use your intuition, or if you just use the context of the other cards, then you can go in the right direction with it. But there are a lot of pathways you can take with it. And if we look at the RWS card, there's a guy that's looking at these pentacles and he's just paused thinking about it. Now, one of the things is that there's a lot of work that went into this situation. He's at where he's at because he put forth a lot of effort. And I like on the Surrealist Tarot, it kind of shows a good illustration of that because it has a big brain up here. And it just means that you put a lot of thought into it. You came up with a lot of ideas and maybe researched it. And then it has a heart attached to it. So there was passion there driving you to do this. And there's a guy on a bicycle. So it was planned, it was efficient. But maybe you're at a point where you're wondering, was all this effort worth it? And I think it can be like that sometimes when we reevaluate something and look at the results of that. Now, whether it's worth it or not, that's going to depend on your perspective on it. But I think that the Alchemical Tarot really does give us an idea of how that can play out. So if we look at the tower right here, it has all these coins on it, but it's going from lead to gold. So one of the goals of alchemy was to transmute metal into gold. So going from base metal, lead, to more refined and more precious metal, gold. And it was a metaphor for really transforming yourself and making yourself better, both physically and spiritually. But I think if you focus more on the physical component of it and just looking at the financial aspect of being able to change something of less value into more value for profit, then it may not be worth the effort. Because if you think about alchemy, and you think about ancient times, they were not able to really change metal to gold. But if you understand the actual spirit of alchemy and what it's all about, and you realize that you're working on yourself during the process, then yeah. Now, another thing that it could mean is that you are overlooking something of value about this project and you're going to scrap it or pass it up when it really has a lot of use. So in the UFO tarot, there's a guy working on the land, but he doesn't see this artifact over here. You see these spaceships here in the background. And this was something that maybe was lost and he's just passing it. So really look at your surroundings and look at the things that are connected to this idea or this thing you've been working on, and really try to see if there is something that maybe it seems unrelated, but it really does have a place and it can really enhance whatever you're doing. So yeah, like I said, there's so many different things that you can think about when you get this card. And another thing is patience. Maybe he's just waiting. So we have a glacier on the Science Tarot, and as it recedes back, it's revealing something beautiful. So if you give something time, right, it takes thousands of years for these landscapes to form. Maybe there's something that isn't just beautiful, but it's going to last. That's going to be the result of this. And if you don't stick around, or if you turn your back on it, you'll never see that. So that's another option. It could simply mean that you need to take a break. Maybe we're thinking too much about this. Just take a break. If we look at the Shimmering Veil, you have a person laying here, the sun setting. So they did all of this work and now it's time to just relax. Self-care, making sure you don't burn out, and so that you can continue with this journey of this whatever goal you have. Now let's look at the Thoth system. Actually, before I look at the Thoth system, I want to mention something. There's a YouTube channel called Helki Rain, and she talks about the number 7 and all the cards that have the number 7. I think she did an excellent job of explaining that. So if you want to know more about the energy of the number 7, check that channel out. Because when I was researching this material, I saw that because I was working on the 7 of Pentacles, and I thought, wow, that's really good information. So I wanted to make sure I pointed that out so that you guys could take a look at that in connection with what I'm doing here. So I'll put the link below. So let's switch to the Thoth system. So for the Thoth system, we have the word failure down here at the bottom. Now, failure is interesting because it's not failure like we would think of it. Like if we look at the RWS card, that doesn't look like failure. It just looks like someone that's waiting. But why does the Thoth system take it to the next level and call it failure? Well, if we look at the actual long name of this, the complete name of this card is the Lord of Success Unfulfilled. So it means that everything was right, but the failure is on the part of just not taking the effort because we were afraid. It is the fear of failure. It is the fear that stopped us and made us procrastinate or go in a different direction when everything was going to work out. And so it's a shame, really, that we didn't do it because it was something that was the right thing to do, and we just didn't see it. So the energy of this card, if we look at the Tree of Life, the energy of this card is Taurus and Saturn. It falls in the realm of Netzach, which is the material world. So it's Taurus in the Pentacles, in the material world, everything's set right. But then we have the energy of Saturn, which is restricting it and limiting it. So you're not doing the work because you're stuck, right? And so that's a really interesting thing to think about when we think about the base layer of this card and where that comes from. I think Liber T, the Tarot of Stars Eternal, really shows that very well because we have Taurus laying down here, restricted, and we have Saturn limiting it. And we can see that the energy is just very stuck. So I find that when that happens sometimes, we lose out and we may see our idea taken up by something else or someone else. And I think right here on the Tabula Mundi, that comes to mind. I don't know if that was the intent of it, but you have all these discs here, 7 discs, but you have these snakes eating them. And when I saw this, I immediately thought of some of the ideas that I've had that I didn't act on because I thought that I wouldn't be able to achieve it or I wasn't good enough. And then I saw someone take that idea and bring it into reality and make it work for them. And it's kind of like those things just get grabbed up as you put them out there. And so that failure is on me, not seeing the potential in myself or not seeing the potential in what I was doing. And I think that's a lesson in life, right? So let's talk about the element that we want to talk about here, which is thulium. So if you haven't watched my channel before, I usually talk about an element from the periodic table. And I look at its overall history and energy and its uses, and I see how it relates to different tarot cards, right? And I kind of go in order. But the element that we're on is thulium. And this element is really interesting because it's really hard to extract. The lanthanides, it's a lanthanide, which falls at the bottom of the periodic table. And in general, they're hard to get. But this one in particular, there was one scientist named Charles James who decided that he was going to purify it, isolate it, and get some thulium that he could use. And he had a large amount of material, rock, that he was trying to extract it from. He boiled it, used acids on it, processed it to extract all of this stuff, but he only got like a few ounces of it. And he realized that after all of this work, it took him 15,000 steps for just this small amount. And he realized that for all this work that he did, the use of thulium, there were other elements that could do the same thing for much cheaper. So he wondered, was it even worth it? And he backed off on it. Scientists, even to this day, don't have a lot of hope for thulium. If you read this book right here, The Elements, the very first line when you look at thulium, I'll go ahead and read it. It says, John Elmsley, author of Nature's Building Blocks and a preeminent authority on the elements, called thulium the least significant element there is. So I think that if you take that perspective, then you won't see the value in it. Maybe we're overlooking it. I think that all these elements, they're here for a reason. And so if we go back to the Thoth card, the failure is not on thulium. It is really on us to see the success that's there with it. And I think we'll find that at some point. Now, of course, there are applications that it's used for, but it's just not one of those elements that's in the spotlight. But I think that it will be. But I want to talk about the attitude that chemists really can take to find the best out of an element. And it comes from this book called The Periodic Table. Now, this book isn't really about the periodic table. It's about a Holocaust survivor who used his knowledge of chemistry to get out of that situation and to survive. And I think it's a 5-star book. I highly recommend it. But I want to read a part of it that really does embrace that idea of the 5 of Pentacles. It says, "We are chemists, that is hunters. Ours are 2 experiences of adult life, success and failure. To kill the white whale or wreck the ship. One should not surrender to incomprehensible matter. One must not just sit down. We are here for this, to make mistakes and to correct ourselves, to stand the blows and hand them out. We must never feel disarmed. Nature is immense and complex, but it is not impermeable to the intelligence. We must circle around it, pierce and probe it. Look for the opening or make it. If you ever feel stuck, you're on this card, you get this card, just try to think about the different options that you have available. Analyze this card from different perspectives and see what works for you. Use your intuition and find the answer that you're looking for. I think it's there amongst all of these things that I've said, and it just depends on your circumstances. But thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Will. This is Atypical Tarot. I'll see you next time.